Me fa so deep. How's it go?
Find the note, girl. Find the note. Welcome back to Survivor
Amateur.
versus Connoisseur. I'm the Connoisseur, Derek.
And I'm the amateur Matthew.
And we're going to be talking about one of the most famous, one of the most recognizable, and well remembered seasons of Survivor, the second season ever, Survivor Australian Outback.
Oh no.
Famously, if you type in drag or not drag race Australia,
Drag Race.
if you type in Survivor,
Drag Race Australia. First off, it's called Drag Race Down Under. Thank you.
let's be inclusive, please, and thank you. Yeah, no, if you search Survivor Australia like I've been doing the past day and a half, you're gonna find lots of things that don't mean anything about this season. So the
Yep.
Australian Outback is its entire nomenclature.
Nomenclature, girl. That's why you're the connoisseur.
Exactly. Big words, big words.
That's a good $5 word right there.
So to start off this podcast, famously, I'm saying that as if like there's been 50 episodes of there's been one. Famously, Matthew does not know in the history of mine and Matthew's friendship of Survivor. Famously, he knows no one. Even from the seasons that are currently on that we are watching together, he'll throw a name out that. What did you call? You called Jeff Varner Josh yesterday in a text. You said not Josh
Who's,
thinking he knows shit. I'm like, who the fuck is Josh?
who the fuck is Jeff?
Jeff. Well, so this will not be an episode where I mention someone and Matthew's like, who the fuck is that?
It depends. It depends. Like Jeff, when you said his name first thing here, I was like, who?
Um,
But I think I have a better grasp on these people now that I actually took notes for this season. So I think I'll be in good shape.
well, just to like, so here's how we're gonna do things because
Okay.
part of this podcast is you learning all the lore, right?
Sure. Yeah.
That us like hardcore Survivor fans have known for years and years and years, but you don't know the lore. Um,
This 20-year-old lore, this
yes,
20-year-old, like these 20-year-old skeletons that we are like that we are digging up for excavation. Yeah. Yeah.
yes, but we don't want to ruin his viewing of future seasons. Like,
Yeah.
there's someone in the season who comes back later, and then after that, you find out a bunch of horrible things about him. But we don't want to ruin that season for Matt.
Hmm.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
we're going to give him the tea that was either around at this exact time or the people don't come back and it doesn't matter. Uh,
Right. Right.
so there's going to be some people. This is famously, Matthew, if I had to pick one cast that was filled with the most horrific people, it
Mhm.
would be this cast.
And mind you, this is a show where we're talking about one of the season's winners shot a puppy. So
Yes.
this is kind of gauging where we're at. And yes, I think I do say that knowing that information because I think people at home who watched the first episode know that I have watched seasons 1 through 6
Mm-hmm.
already. So I know some tea, I know some lore. Season 2, I know a little lore. Like I know Miss Lilibet is a right wing not podcaster. She's like a network talk show host at
She
Fox News.
was also
I
on
know
The View for like a decade.
was on who?
The View.
Was she on The View?
She was on The View for like a very, very
Oh,
long. She was like they always have to have like one hardcore Republican bitch on that show.
sure,
She
sure.
was the Republican. That was her entire
Hmm.
personality on The View.
Right, right.
It was like her and Whoopi like going at each other constantly.
So I know a little bit about that. I know some of those things, but if there's like actual like other tea, I really don't know nothing.
There's gonna be some tea this episode, Matthew, that like your jaw might drop.
I can't wait to find out.
These people have lived some insane lives. We'll just say that.
No lives as insane as Linda, though.
You wish, girl. If I had an ounce of Linda lore, I would give it to you. I have none because she went on Survivor and that was it. Never a peep. And for you wondering, oh, which Linda is he talking about? Like the Linda that makes it far in this season, perhaps? No, he's talking about fourth out Linda from fucking Survivor Africa.
First off, Not too much on Mother. Second off, is there a Linda on this season?
Not on this season. On a future,
Oh, okay. Okay.
there's been Lindas.
Okay. The way you said, oh, is it the Linda on this season? So I was thinking there was a Linda on this Australian Outback that I forgot about.
I mean, that wouldn't be shocking, but no, there's not. So I would love before we get into because famously, I keep saying famously, this is the second episode of this fucking podcast.
Right, right.
We go through the cast members and we grade their games. But before we get into that, I just want to hear, Matthew, your overall thoughts on the season as a whole.
So I really okay. So for new fans who might not have watched the first episode, and I just said it like 2 minutes ago, I have watched seasons 1 through 6 before. I was dreading the rewatch of this season for this podcast because I remember it being really boring. I remember not caring. But also I kind of half paid attention the first time I watched it. But when I actually sat down and paid attention to this season, I was like, wait, this is kind of good. This is kind of like a juicy season. It's one of all the seasons I've watched, it's one of my favorite pre-merges. I kind of love how the pre-merge all shook out. There was like a lot of really fun gameplay, especially on the whichever team Tina was on, whichever like the losing team was that kept losing like 6 challenges in a row.
Oh, good point.
I think there was like some fun gameplay on that team, especially pre-merge. So I really enjoyed the pre-merge. The post-merge was kind of like a little boring. I was like, yeah, yeah, sure. I was losing interest a little bit, but I still think it was a good, solid season. There were a couple of notes I did have that I was just like, as I watched the season, kind of I thought about. First off, the fact that they had to live through a fucking forest fire. They put these people through like so many things this season. They're like forest fire, flash flood, man falling on a fire. It's like they're like they were really testing survivor aspect of this survivor game. I also really enjoyed the Target sponsorships that we got every now and then. Because I thought the Target sponsorships are crazy, but then I remembered that Target is also really big in Australia. I also thought it was good storytelling that they had the Ogakor top two, top three, even. I thought that was good storytelling from the pre-merge to the post-merge. But overall, I just thought it was a good season. I had fun.
I Here's the thing. I feel like people really like this season because of the nostalgia factor
Mm,
and the reason that there's a lot of big moments like Skupin falling in the fire, like the Kimmi and Alicia fight,
great
like
fight.
Jerri anytime she's on screen. Like there's a lot of big moments from this season. But I think when you actually sit down and watch it, it's a really long season. It's 16 episodes.
It's so long. I was like, I'm used to watching 16 episodes of Drag Race, but Survivor, I was diva. We gotta wrap this up. We gotta wrap
Yes.
this up.
Well, and something specifically about this season that when you're watching it in 2024, I just don't think it hits the same is I feel like they were really trying to hide some of the strategy because
Mm,
there was so much negativity towards the Tagi 4 in Borneo and being like, this isn't what this game's about. Strategizing, forming
yeah.
alliances, how dare you? So I feel like they to make it more about the survival parts of it, which is what I think that most people liked. They had to
Yeah.
like hide the strategy, which thereby makes it kind of boring.
Which I did know, especially when I was watching the finale before we literally 5 minutes before we started recording here, is that you could tell the edit was so focused on showing these confessionals of the top three of Keith, Tina, and the other one. Um, I like I they had all these confessionals where they're like, this game reminds you about, what you have back home. This is what it teaches you. This is for my family. It's not about the money. It's never about the money. So I think they were really trying to push this narrative about Survivor being more of a transformative experience rather than a game to win. It felt like a little holiday retreat for some of these players.
Yeah. Well, there was so much focus on like the camp life and like, oh
Mhm.
no, the like
The flash flood.
the flood. Like they had to go like Tina or someone had to go find something. What was it?
I don't remember.
They like had to go out on this like thing and find the thing that like went out into the flood. And like there was so much about that And really, the only people that get any kind of like strategic content are seen as villainous. It's like Jeff Varner
Hmm.
and Jerri, and they're kind of seen as like the strategic pillars of their tribes, and they're also edited to be extremely villainous.
The way I disagree with you though, I don't
Okay.
even think either of them are strategic. We'll get into like their scores later, but it's not even the fact that either of them are strategic. They're both just like edited to be bad people when there are actual bad people on the season. We'll get to that as well. But I don't know if I agree with you on that part, but I do agree with them being edited as villains. I don't agree with them being strategic. But with that being said, though, with the narrative they are trying to push, the fact that like they're like more about, oh, this season is all about family, about building relationships. This season is about, your experience on the show rather than your strategy to win. I do think they chose a good winner for that narrative. I think we'll talk more about Tina later, but I think they did kind of have a fulfilling storyline with the winner they picked. I think there were a lot of through lines here that did develop well for this specific season.
Yeah, I would agree with that. And I would also push back on you saying that you don't think specifically Jerri was strategic. I think for the time that it was, Jerri was being strategic with trying to
Hmm.
form, the alliance with Mitchell and Amber and Colby and like trying to keep that four together. And then we can, turn and vote out Keith and we can vote out Tina. Like
Yeah,
that was baseline strategy, but it was at least some form of strategy, which
thing.
we
Yeah,
really didn't hear from anybody else. It was never,
yeah.
I want to vote this person or we should vote together. It was always just, so I'm trying to make this tortilla. And
I will say though, those tortillas, they look good as hell.
I mean, yeah, but like, I don't know. Look, like, I feel like they tasted horrible.
Probably. But what else would you eat in the Australian Outback?
But if Keith handed you a tortilla and Jerri handed you a tortilla, which one would you eat?
I would spit in Keith's face.
The chef, the professional chef.
Yeah, yeah, because I hate that man.
No, Keith stands. I'm kidding. There's no Keith.
What Keith stands? Not even Keith was a Keith stand. He went into finale being like, I'm not winning this.
And specifically, I guess when we get to the end, talking about like the top two, there had to have been strategy with them
Mhm.
because they made it to the end and they were
Yes.
deciding who was going home. But we never really got those conversations on the season.
Especially, I feel like when we got to top eight, when the losing tribe, the tribe that always lost, Okakor, especially when we got to top eight, when they really decided to start turning on their own and they decided to vote off Jerri and Amber, I feel like there probably was a lot of gameplay that we didn't get to see. It was more so kind of just boiled down to, I don't like Jerri as a human being, get rid of her. Like I feel like we could have at least had one conversation where they're like, we still have the majority. Let's vote out Jerri, and then we'll still have the majority after. Like I'm sure there was a conversation like that that happened at some point that we didn't get the privilege to see, which made it kind of a boring, which is why I say like the post merge was kind of boring to me. I feel like it was just whatever.
Well, and part of that is because a lot of the really fun characters like Marilyn, like Kimmi, like
Shout out
Skupin,
Maralyn. Yep.
yes, uh, they're all gone. And we're
Mhm.
left with like Amber and Nick, who like they don't do much in the show. We don't see them doing much of anything.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have so many thoughts about like some of this strategy later on, but I'll wait till we get to like the
Mhm.
Jerri boot and the Amber boot. But I think we can start with our very first boot of the season, Miss Deb Eaton, who is a corrections officer.
First off, abolish prisons. Second off, second off, shout out Deb. I love Deb in like a Victoria Pork Chop Parker kind of way. I
Yes.
love Deb. And my favorite part about Deb's entire performance is the fact that she went home episode one, day three, but she was still affecting the game 2 weeks later. The fact that what's his name went home because of her, shout out Deb. Deb Eaton from Milan, New Hampshire. Like, what a woman. What an icon.
One of my favorite, just like random, like you'll find those like random survivor moments I like videos on YouTube. And one of my
Yeah.
favorites, if I were to make one, it would be Deb going, guys, we got a lot of rocks. We could make our shelter just out of rocks. Deb, how would that work? Deb, how are there going to be rocks above our heads and we're going to be sleeping?
I love her. Like she is perfect. She's a perfect caricature of a modern day clown, and I think that's why she's a perfect corrections officer. Like, my God.
um, if I had to like rank her game, so Deb really gets into trouble because there's a lot of young people on this tribe that are just like they're kikiing, you know what I mean? Like
Sure.
having
Yeah.
fun. And despite her being a corrections officer, which I would assume you're hearing a lot of vulgar language, seeing a
Hmm.
lot of like some shit. I mean, unless her prison is like the most well-behaved prison in planet
It
Earth.
is New Hampshire,
That
though.
is true. That is true. She was very appalled by the behavior of some of these young people, and I think immediately was like kind of like Rudy and BB last season. Rudy was like, "I got to fit in with these young people if I'm going to stick."
Hmm.
Deb went the BB direction and was like, "I'm not vibing."
Would you have voted her off first?
Yes.
Because she's gonna even from the get-go, from the minute she had the map, it was all hell broke loose with her. Like it was all hell broke loose with her, where she's like, guys, we got to go this way. We got to go this way, and she ended up going the wrong way. It's like that was not an asset. It was fun to watch on TV, but I could only imagine being there in person for just 3 whole days with this woman, and imagine being a prisoner on death row and having to see her every day.
Well, and there's like been lists, obviously, of like the worst players of all time, like the worst first boots. Deb is known to make an appearance or two on those lists.
Hmm. Hmm.
It's clear why. If I had to grade her game, I would give her an F, unfortunately.
F.
Do you want the T on Miss Deb Eaton?
Yes. Deanie.
Because
Does she come back?
I'm sorry to say she doesn't come back.
Damn.
But
Okay. Wait. Sorry. Pause. Dream All-Star season. Deb, Linda, Q from 45
oh
or
my god.
46, and Selena Estides.
Honestly, that final four would be iconic.
Okay, what's the tea with Deb?
So, she kind of got into some hot water postseason and was in the tabloids because I need to like there were 45 million people that watched this premiere. On
Oh
average,
wow.
around 30 million people a week watched the entire season.
Oh
Like
wow.
everybody knew these people. It didn't matter if you went home first, second, third. Everyone on the season was a minor celebrity for like
Right.
probably the year that they were on. So when a reporter found out that Deb, following the passing of her husband, started dating her husband's son, that is her
Oh,
stepson, um, it was then published in the like gossip magazines, and Deb was hounded by reporters and angry people for months.
it was in all the magazines at the time.
Quite the scandal, actually.
Her stepson?
Yeah, she started dating, and so they filmed a like, where are they now with this
Hmm.
cast? And it was like just footage of her, like one in prison, not like she's not like, she works there.
Put her in prison, honey, for
She
dating her
works there,
stepson.
not because she was behind bars. And then just like her like making out with her stepson.
Oh
So
my God. And the
yeah,
stepson was cool with it?
I mean, he dated her. I mean, it was consensual.
I mean, I guess. That's
Also,
that's
this
crazy
like
though.
it wasn't like a 20-year-old like kid. It was like this man was like 35, 40.
Is that supposed to make me feel better?
I'm just saying, like, when you hear like stepson, you think like really, really young, but like
Yeah.
he wasn't that young.
That doesn't make it feel better. Well, I don't even know the logistics of how the law would work in that way. I'm not going to
They
touch it.
weren't
It's New
related by
Hampshire.
blood. They weren't related by blood, so I don't think the law can come into play. But I wonder if they're together. I wonder where are they now? Now,
Now, 20 years later. See, that's
yes.
that's what I love about this podcast. We should get Deb Eaton on as a guest.
Yes. Well, do you
when
remember
she is 66 years old right now.
do you remember T-Bird from Survivor Africa? Teresa?
Was she the diva who just died?
No. The
Oh,
world would end if T-Bird died. She made it to like top four, I think, on Africa. She was like a very nice older lady on that season.
I
She
don't recall.
runs a podcast with Rob's sister Nino,
Of
where
course.
they talk to these like older, most obscure, random people. And I wonder if she's ever had Deb Eaton on. I would love to listen to that.
And did she ever have Linda on? I need to
You
stop with
know,
Linda. When we get
I
to Africa, by the way, my Linda spiel is never ending. You're gonna be sick of me.
give me a hug, sweeties. What, did your mom never give you a hug?
She gets down on one knee. Oh, I love it. Get together, team. Get together. I love it. Anyways, sorry. Shout
um,
out Deb. Bring her on to Rob Has a Podcast.
yes. Then we have another like scandalous for a different reason contestant. We have
Mhm.
Kel Gleason, who is involved in one of the biggest conspiracy theories of Survivor. And
Okay. Oh, sorry.
it is,
Wait.
did he or did he not have the beef jerky?
Okay. So literally, with a lot of these early season boots from Survivor season two, I only have like 1, 2 sentence max bullet points, right? Literally, the only thing I have for Kel is was he eating jerky? That's the only thing I wrote down for him. Um, so what's the tea?
The tea is it is still unresolved. There's no like
The
proof.
oldest Survivor mystery there is.
True. There's no like, well, no, the oldest mystery is did production ask Dirk and Sean to vote out Stacy in episode 3 from Survivor Borneo? But
Sure.
there's no
We recorded
footage.
that episode already.
There's no footage of Kel like jerky in hand. But Tina thinks he ate the jerky. Therefore, I think he ate the jerky.
I believe that Tina does not have the capability to lie
Same.
nowadays.
Outlive, outlaugh, outlove.
Outlive, outlaugh, outlove. What is it? The memoirs of a
The
survivor.
devotions of living survivor. I don't. This is the devotions of something. Surviving the real world, whatever.
My favorite author of all time, Tina
Yes.
Gleason. Best Dostoevsky shaking in his boots. Tolstoy, never heard of him. Tina Gleason,
Shakespeare
Pulitzer.
quaking in Tina Wesson's presence.
So has Kel ever come out and said anything about it? I know
Tell
Kel is like, I had grass. Girl, first off, who's chewing on grass? If you had fucking tobacco, like if you had chewing tobacco, sure. But your story was that you had a blade of grass that you scrunched up and started chewing. Grow up.
Kel still says that he had no jerky and Jerri is a snake and a rat. But according to Tina, among others on his tribe, he was I think it was an extra pair of shoes he tried smuggling in, and like he was like trying to like break other rules, uh,
Okay.
like at the airport, just like getting to Australia. So they were like, "Oh, this bitch has jerky." Vote him. Vote him.
I mean, I wouldn't put it past them. That's why he's an army intelligence officer. Like, of course.
Well, and that's another thing. Army intelligence, like when you're in the army, they're known to sew things like beef jerky into their clothes.
Yeah. I would not put it past him if he had it just like in the cuff of his pants, he just sewn it in or something.
Yes. So he is the first voted out of Ogakor. And I
Yeah.
think the jerky's part of it. I think he just didn't, he was just like kind of weird. Like they just didn't get along.
That's my husband, though.
Kel?
I think he's an attractive man. Yes.
Okay. Uh,
I would
Fun
have voted him out
facts.
first too, though. The minute I heard the beef jerky story, though, I first off, Jerry's an icon. So therefore I'm gonna believe everything she says. So if the minute I heard that he had jerky, I believe that he had jerky and I believe that he's holding out on us, get him out of here. He can
No,
go have
like
as much jerky as he wants at the fucking hotel.
picture it. Salem, Massachusetts, 1587. Jerry Manthey walks up to me and says, "That bitch is a witch." I believe her. I burn her at this. Yeah, no. So Kel, I'm gonna give an F2 too, because like it seems like they needed some excuse to vote him out because they were like,
Yeah.
get out of here. That was the excuse. That's you got to do pretty bad to like.
I Yeah, I'm gonna give him an F minus because what the fuck was that
Oh,
grass story? That grass story, like, what are you doing, first off? But I will say it did create for an interesting story for like episode two. I was like, I was a little nervous going into the season, but I forgot about this drama. It was like a little, it wasn't spicy, it wasn't anything crazy, but it was just enough of a kick, like enough of a finger pointing, enough of an accusatory vibe that I was like, ooh, does he have the jerky or not? And here we are in 2024 still talking about it, but that's because of Jerri and not because of Kel. F minus.
to your husband.
Yeah, yeah. D to
Uh,
my husband.
fuck off. No, honestly, this was like honestly perfect because they go to the next two tribals after this. And I feel like this episode really set up the dynamics. It introduced you more to Jerri, to
Yeah,
Maralyn, to Tina.
yeah.
So speaking of Maralyn, she is sadly and unfortunately the next one to go. Mad Dog, Maralyn Hershey, 51, from Virginia, retired police officer, and beautiful singer.
First off, a cab. Um, second off, she seemed like a lovely person, I suppose. R.I.P. to Marilyn.
She's not
Uh,
dead.
oh, she's not.
No,
Oh, I thought I saw her in the in memoriam for Survivor.
no, she is currently 75 years old, but her birthday's coming up, so she'll be 76.
Oh, shout out to Marilyn Hershey, ACAB. Um, she seemed lovely. I think my clearest memory of her is when she was just like having a lovely time swimming in the river, with Tina and the other girls. Like she seemed like she was having a good time, and sometimes I love seeing old people just have a good time. So
She wasn't even
that's
that
it.
old. It's like the Golden Girls. Like she really wasn't that old. 51 is not old. Uh,
Yeah. Well,
but like people looked older back then.
and she was a police officer, so
She's seen some things probably.
ACAB. Yeah.
See, there's like random people throughout Survivor history, specifically in the first, I would say, 10 seasons, like kind of like you and Linda. That it's like if the fandom in general liked Linda, that's how they
Yeah.
feel about Mad Dog.
Marilyn.
They love her.
Okay.
And I love her. She's such a joy on screen. Unfortunately, she takes a little tumble, kind of like Sonia in Borneo in the challenge. And that's I feel like everyone else gets along super well. So there's really not any reason to vote anyone else out. It's just like we gotta win challenges, I guess. Bye, Mad
Yeah.
Dog.
That's literally just the victim of it is she was kind of just a weak link in the team early on, and that kind of was a she kind of got punished for that by the team. And they kicked her out, which is like fair. Like, what can you do in that situation, really? Vote out Mitchell? Like,
Yeah, I mean, especially those first few seasons. I would say the first like 15 older
mhm.
people in Survivor, they don't really do that well.
Yeah.
But
Except for
honestly,
Tina.
Tina was not old. She was literally at the time of filming this 39.
My God, she's like the crypt keeper.
Again, people just looked older than they are, I think, back then. But
Hmm.
um yeah, no, I would give Marilyn a C plus because honestly, besides falling, she didn't do anything wrong. People liked her. She got along well. And I
Yeah.
think that if they won more challenges, she could have like, sneaked through to the merge.
Yeah. Um, I would give her like a D. Like, I don't think she did anything particularly notable. I don't think she did anything particularly bad. D. I got nothing more to say about Marilyn. I hope she's doing well at her 76-year-old age
Five.
out in
She's not
Wakefield,
76
Virginia.
yet. Let's
Oh,
not.
pardon me. Pardon me.
It's like
A
that
cab.
video of the woman. It's like she's almost 80 and she's like, oh, 76. I'm
Or
coming
that
back.
video of what's that video of Kevin Hart and that other guy? Where he's like, I'm 50 years old. Damn. Oh God.
It's
I don't
you when
remember the
someone
other guy.
says they're over the age of like 30.
Oh my God, Derek, how old are you?
All right, next up, the third person in a row from Ogakor to go home is Mitchell Olson. Now, there's a lot of lore and a lot of history behind this specific move, but I want to hear your thoughts first, Matthew.
I genuinely had nothing written down for this man. I have nothing to say for him. He did not make an impact on me.
He's gay,
Um,
right?
is he?
Hmm.
He is from Union City, New Jersey, so I wouldn't put it past him.
It's the puka shells. He's gay.
The puka shells. Shout out, you know what? Shout out to early 2000s queer people. Like that fashion statements that you'd all put out. What a time. Like shout out to the queer as folk watchers. Like really, you guys were a backbone. The puka shells.
So no thoughts on Mitchell?
I have no thoughts on Mitchell because for the longest time he reminded me of that one from season one, the youth pastor. Like he reminded me of
Oh,
him for a long time.
sure.
So I sure. So I kept mixing him up, but he didn't make an impact on me. So I'm just gonna give him a solid D. I'm just gonna say that right now.
So the dynamics of the tribe at this point, you have Jerri, who's really trying to get in with Colby, because she
Mm.
wants to fuck Colby,
Yep.
who didn't in 2001,
I did not.
because you didn't know he fucking existed.
I don't even think I was born then when
What,
the season came
what
out.
year were you born?
I was born in 2001.
God damn it. Okay. Um, so you have Jerri, who is like bringing in Colby. She's tight with Amber and Mitchell. Amber, Mitchell, Jerri are really tight three. And then you have Keith and Tina, who are kind of like the olds. Um, Tina's not actually old, but like she's like thrown in with Keith. So in this scenario, Colby is technically like a swing vote. So Tina, this is a very famous piece of Survivor lore because it changes the rules of the game. In between when they left for camp and
I
when they
forgot
got
about this.
to tribal council, convinces Colby to vote for Mitchell. She previously was trying to get him to vote for Amber, and he's like, "Nah, I'm not doing that." But he would vote out the gay. So after that, the producers were like, "No talking in between going to tribal and getting there because they usually don't film that."
First off, Survivor producers, grow up. Grow up. I think it actually creates an interesting dynamic if there's like an off-screen conversation that we don't get to see. Just grow up. Let them talk. Because I do remember gasping when Tina went up to the camera when she voted. She's like, I managed to convince Colby when I was away from the camera. Like I thought that was amazing TV. I was like, this is I was gagged. So I think it creates better TV sometimes. As long as it's not like every time though. But
Yeah. Another rule that came from Mitchell's elimination, Colby, like a dodo, folded his vote inside out. So when Colby voted first, Mitchell voted second. So when Mitchell opened up the urn and put his vote in, he saw his name on the little piece of paper and knew that Colby voted for him and that he was probably going
mm.
home. So now whenever someone votes, they take it immediately out. And there's never any votes in that urn when someone's voting after this.
Oh, really? I
Yes.
did not know that.
Yep.
So they have to like just dump it back in when they go count the votes.
Well, I'm assuming they have to like put them in the correct order for Jeff to read them to like make it the most dramatic. You know what I mean?
Right, right.
And then they'll probably just like stack them neatly.
Do they still do they still order it to be like interesting stories? I feel like they only do that for like the finales.
No, they always. Because think about it. If let's say on this current season, it would be like one vote Andy,
I'm
one
not
vote
watching this season.
Sierra, one vote Sam, two votes Andy, three votes Andy, two votes Sierra, three votes Sierra, five votes Sierra. And so it like makes you it like plays with your expectations.
I suppose, but I feel like it's only fun when it's the finale.
I mean, I would, there's probably never a single time after, even maybe in the first season, where they don't like strategically place them so that
Mhm.
it packs the most punch.
Wow. So not only did Mitchell not make an impact, but his elimination made more of an impact than he did. Wow.
Yes. He
Wow.
did record another reason why I think he's gay. He recorded a cover of I Will Survive by Gloria Gaynor about his time on Survivor.
shout out Lana B and Helena Boy.
Yes.
Uh,
Yes.
I'm looking at his Survivor wiki page, and his luxury item was a songbook
Yeah, that's where he wrote the I Will Survive cover.
by literally.
I would give Mitchell like a C. I give him a C plus because like he was good enough to like get in an alliance, but he also was targeted. But it was only
But it's an
because
alliance with Jerry and Amber. How good of an alliance is that?
so you're saying if Jerri was on the beach with you, you wouldn't want to align with her.
No, I would love to align with Jerry, but with Amber,
I mean, it's a number.
yeah, but it's Amber.
Next up, we have one of the most entertaining people on the season, and it's very kind of honestly sad that she doesn't go further. Kimmi Kappenberg, famous for being a vegetarian.
I kind of love this diva a lot because I really love that. I really appreciate and respect that her only storyline this entire season is her being vegetarian. Like
Yes.
I do respect that hustle. I do. Because if there's one thing about vegetarians is that they will never let you forget that they're a vegetarian. Shout out vegetarians, love you all. But I was really entertained by her as a character on the television show.
Yes.
I thought she was great TV.
Yes.
Um, and then we'll talk about it more when we get to Alicia as well. But her fight between her and Alicia, one of my favorite moments. Honestly, my favorite moment from the season. What a great
Yeah.
fight.
Yeah.
But I really respect you knew she was that diva the second they did that gross foods challenge. And she was like, oh no, no, Jeff, I can't. It's like I kind of love it. I really respect that that's her truth. I really do. I love her as a person, as a player. Mm-mm. No, no. Mm-mm.
She was definitely very abrasive. And I feel like how they
Uh,
wanted the audience to perceive Jerri is actually how Kimmi was.
hmm Yeah, I would agree with that. But I don't even think like abrasive is the right term. I thought she was just needly. She was just needly. She would needle people. Like that's how I feel like she would do it. Like she would never like get into an outright confrontation with somebody unless somebody would start it first. But she would be like, "Oh, did you go and hunt a pig today?" Like she would needle people.
When Skupin comes back covered in blood from his
First,
pig,
oh my
he's like,
God.
wow, that's interesting.
My God. What
F,
do you
F player.
Oh, horrible player. Like she's terrible at the game. Horrible. But love her as a character. I'm gonna give her an F plus though.
For entertainment value.
Yeah. Yeah.
The don't you wag your finger in my face. I will always wag my finger in your face.
Oh my God. What a
He ate
what a
her
fight.
up. Oh, I love
No,
them.
because I know for a fact Kimmy was gagged. And the thing I love too about Kimmy as a character and as a person probably too, because this is kind of a really good reality show. The thing I love about Kimmy too is that I know for a fact she was so gagged internally, but she's one of those people that has to pretend like she wasn't.
Yeah.
Where she was like, I bet you for a fact that Kimmy's a person that would say, I know you are, but what am I? Like I feel like she was that person.
The funniest thing about this whole thing is like they literally when they put pen to parchment, it was literally because this bitch will not shut up about being a vegetarian. Like that was it. That was her arc.
Like, shout out to her. I think, wait, what did my notes say? Yeah, okay. So my notes literally say about Kimmy. The only thing I wrote, only story was about her being vegetarian. Even the one time she had a fight, it was about her vegetarianism.
Which I mean, that fight was like a water cooler moment. Like one of the most iconic. If you like asked 100 people, what is the most iconic Survivor moment? I would say a good portion of them would say that because it's one of the only ones that like people still talk about and remember.
Yeah. Like I feel like I'm gonna quote that fight for a long time.
Yeah,
I will
as you should.
always whack my finger in its
Yes.
face.
So next up we have Michael Skupin. Um, for the podcast listeners, I roll for Matthew immediately.
Yes.
What are your thoughts?
So this is gonna start this trend that I'm gonna have with this season where I hate all of the men this season. I do not like any of the men. Top 10 on. Michael can't stand this man. Um, early signs of sociopathic tendencies. Uh, but I will say though, and this is going to hold him back from getting an F for me, is that I will say his psychotic tendencies kind of really helped them a lot pre-merge. I will give him that. He was keeping them fed, but he was out for blood, literally, and it was very scary. And I would not, I would actually cry if I had to be in the same camp as him. Like, I would not feel safe sleeping in the next bungalow next to him. And there's one thing I did note: the fact that they named the episode, the fact that they named the episode where he went home "Trial by Fire" is crazy. Like, I noticed that when I was doing this rewatch because I knew, I know Michael went home, and I saw the episode title. I was like, "Trial by Fire" is crazy.
That is so funny. No, it's honestly like you're like hitting the nail on the head. And I think
Yeah.
when we eventually talk about some of his future lore, you will not be surprised in the slightest. But what did you think about how they showed when he fell into the fire? Because this is another, I mean, back to back episodes of water cooler, most iconic survivor moments of all time.
I mean, I was glad. Um, Oops. So the thing about this, I do know because you and I have had a conversation before in private where this moment when he fell into the fire and had to get helicoptered away was kind of the moment that fans realized how real this thing was. Which I thought was very poignant when you pointed that out to me because it was very, I mean, I was going to use the word authentic because it literally happened authentically and organically. But it was, I think, very well done in terms to show the severity of the situation to the fans at home. Um, so it was kind of a fascinating moment, I think, especially for like these early seasons of Survivor as they're trying to like garner their identity, especially in an era where reality TV is still so new and novel and people don't really know what to expect with like reality competition, you know? Um, so I think that was a kind of like a good signaling moment, a good turn in the series, I think.
Yeah. I mean,
Good, I used loosely, but
it was very just like raw. Like they showed
mhm.
the skin just like falling off his fingers. Like they really like got up in there and like
Mhm.
you could see how because there's like okay, I'm gonna be so real. There's some like medical evacuations where it's like oh, I like hurt my arm just a little bit, and the tribe is like sobbing, and I'm like whatever.
Right.
But like the tribe is like holy shit! I just saw my tribe member like their skin was falling off of their hand in chunks like so getting to see their reaction, like it did feel really raw and it felt very like, oh my God, like this is no joke.
Mhm. Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And it was kind of like, yeah, that's really no better way to put it too, especially. And I remember also as well one of the earliest I don't know why I remember this conversation so well that we had too. It was kind of like I knew up until this point how I kind of view Survivor is that I know they're not going to let anybody die. You know, I think they'll kind of throw these people out in the wilderness at their pleasure. They'll let them go through forest fires, they'll let them go through flash floods, but they're not going to let anybody die. You know, that's kind of how I feel like about the authenticity of the situation is like I kind of knew going into the show like they're going to push them to the limits, but they're not going to let anybody die. But I feel like this is kind of a moment where you really saw firsthand like oh yeah, they are not going to protect these people until like it gets to that point.
Yeah. Yeah. I would say there's like two times in Survivor where someone truly almost died. This isn't one of them, but this is like,
Mhm.
this is showing you like how intense it could get.
Sure. Yeah.
Um, yeah. Things about sorry, not Jeff Varner, things about Michael Skupin I remember from this season specifically. Him thanking God for making him the leader of the tribe, him running through the woods covered in blood, him falling in the fire.
Yeah. That's it. But like I said, like I think a lot of those sociopathic signals helped the tribe in like the first half of the season. Like they it would have been smooth sailing for the other tribe for the orange team if Michael did not go home. If Michael did not get injured, it would have been smooth sailing for that team. But him going home literally changed it literally flipped the entire game on its head. Because not only was the orange team numbers advantage, they would have cooked the green team. They would have cooked Okafor in that next immunity challenge. And not only that, Michael was simply their best player, point blank, period. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. Michael was the one keeping them fed. Michael was the one carrying them through challenges. Still hate the man, but that is kind of like the things he gave the what is the other tribe's name? What is the orange tribe?
Kucha.
Kucha. Okay, yeah, like those are the things he gave the Kucha tribe. So I will give him that.
Yeah, it's kind of like last season where Gretchen went home at the merge and the entirety of that tribe fell to pieces. It was like Kucha went to the merge without Michael and
Mhm.
like they had nothing.
Yeah, yeah. It was literally he was holding them up by the very like he was literally carrying them on their back the
By the
entire
pieces
time.
of skin that was hanging off of.
Gross.
So how would you rate his game?
So for Michael specifically, I feel like I don't know why. I literally just thought about this in the last 30 seconds. For Michael specifically, I feel like I do have to grade him on a scale of these early seasons where they were playing Survivor rather than playing the game of Survivor, if that makes sense. As a survivalist, like he was spectacular, A plus. Like I think he would murder me, but I do think that he would be able to carry me through like a zombie apocalypse, you know? Um, so for that, I'm going to give him a little extra score. I'm going to give him a little bump. I'm going to give him like a C because I don't think he was really good at the strategery of the game. And I do say that strategery. But for the strategy of the game, I'm going to give him like a C. I don't think he was that good at that. But for what he was able to give the Kucha tribe before the merge, I'm going to bump it up. I'm going to bump him up a little bit.
I I don't know because I did give like Mad Dog and Mitchell like a C plus, which is like C
Mhm.
is like you are the most average player ever. You're not bad, you're not good.
Sure.
I would give him a C minus only because
Okay.
like he did make himself useful when he was like providing, but I don't see a world in which he wins. Like I don't think he's
No,
giving him a $1 million.
he would never have won in the million years, but I do think he would have carried a lot of people a long way.
Yeah, which it would be interesting to see like who goes at one more Ogakor tribal, and then
Hmm.
what happens if Skupin is at the merge? Like, yeah, that's like a what if. I would be really like
Yeah.
interested to see. We're at the merge, not the jury phase yet, just the merge, and the tribes are split 5-5.
Yeah.
So the next to go is Jeff Varner because Kimmi, much like Deb, is impacting the game from beyond the grave. Because she mentioned to I don't remember if it was Colby or Jerri or someone that Jeff had gotten a vote. So
Wait,
they
was it Kimmy that did that?
yeah.
I thought
So
Deb did that.
no, it was Kimmi.
Oh.
By doing that, Tina and Colby body this fucking episode are like, Keith, you're the one here with a vote. You got to win immunity so that they can't vote for you. And then
Hmm.
we vote for Jeff because Jeff is the one that's vote there. Like the mechanics of like how ties worked back then, they basically like figured a way around
Yeah.
it to like figure out
They
how.
came up with something last minute when they had a tie with Mitchell, and they were like, "How do we do this?"
Yes. But after a 10-hour long immunity challenge that Tina stayed up on that little log for, she throws it to Keith so that Keith can be safe.
And she would have won that too.
Yes. Keith
Yeah.
was like quivering.
Yeah. No, literally. And he was like whimpering like a baby to Tina, where he's like, "I need this. I need this." Like, girl, shut up.
Go fucking make me a sandwich, Keith. Um, who
Go
was
fucking
it
cook
was
for President Clinton. I don't know.
it was Alicia who was the last Kucha to step down, correct?
No, Tina was.
Kucha.
Oh, yeah, 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 yeah.
Which is it's kind of showing that like they don't have it together because like
Hmm.
they weren't thinking about well we're probably going to tie it's going to be 5-5 who has more? They weren't thinking about these things
No.
like Tina and Colby were.
Although I will say though, no, we'll get more into that until Alicia when we get to Alicia. I do think Alicia was thinking like that, but she was thinking like that too late. But we'll get to that later when we get to Alicia. But
Varner didn't really have a bunch. He was the gay who was friends with Alicia and was
oh,
kind of
he's
just like
gay.
yeah
Oh, I
um
like him less.
he like almost went home first because he was sick, but then he like gets in. He just kind of like stirs the pot a little bit on Kucha.
Yeah. Yeah, like Jeff, I don't really remember him that much. But I do think he had some funny sound bites in the confessional. I do think he was more memorable in the confessional than he was actually playing the game. And I think he had a lot more confidence in the confessional than he actually did in the game. He was the type of person where he would be in the confessional where he's like, oh my God, what did he say? I wrote this one down. I wrote this one down in episode 6. He said, and I quote, we were gonna kill them. We had them scared. This was right after the merge, right after Michael went home. He's like, we were gonna kill them. We had them scared. He's the type of person to say that in the confessional, but when he's like actually out there playing the game, he's like, that was kind of the thing I was talking to you about earlier that you had mentioned at the beginning of our podcast this week was like, he always pretended like he mattered. He always thought he mattered when he really didn't. But other than that, like other than those like sound bites in the confessional, he didn't make a big of an impression. I wouldn't call him like a game changer. I wouldn't call him like really innovative. He just had opinions on things that other people did and said. And he was very honest about that in confessional, but the confessional doesn't matter here, sweetie. Everyone else, there's another thing I wrote down right before he went home. Everyone else was an important character except him.
Oof. I mean, there's a lot of parallels in the archetype of Jeff and Richard Hatch. You know, this like gay kind
Evil
of
gay man.
evil gay man who like is in the confessional, like doing the strategizing, whatever.
But
Um,
Jeff wasn't strategizing though. Rich was strategizing. Jeff was just there.
right. Well, and that was what I was gonna say. Richard
Oh,
Hatch
sorry.
is good at the game. Jeff Varner is not good at the game.
Exactly.
So honestly, I would give him like a D.
Yeah, I'd give him a D minus. I would give him an F, but I gave Deb an F plus for like entertainment factor. So I'll bump him up a little bit. I think he had some good confessionals, but other than that, nothing really else.
Yeah, I'll D plus
Mhm.
for Varner. The first member of the jury is Alicia
Mhm.
Calaway, who is Divatron.
Yeah.
Every time she's on screen this season, she's serving.
Yes. Absolutely. Like the minute that she walked in for that first council where she was the first jury, like the minute she walked in, you could tell she was fucking serving. Like that episode, the episode after she went home and the way she walked in, just so
Demure.
powerful. Like it was like, I love Alicia. I love Alicia a lot. She was kind of an underrated threat. Kind of a great team player, except with Kimmi. I really love and respect Alicia a lot. The I will always wave my finger in your face is the single most quotable thing from this entire season. Point blank period. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. The other thing too I liked about Alicia is that more than anybody else in this game, I think she was able to look at the game in 3D. She was sort of able to look at it in the Matrix. And by that I mean she was able to sort of map out how things would play out in different scenarios, which is what I was kind of getting to when we were talking about Jeff, where I think Alicia was able to like sort of start strategizing and think outside of the box, but just too little too late when she didn't have a minority. Or sorry, excuse me, when she was in the minority. For example, in episode 7, I and see how prepared I am this time. I actually have
I know.
quotes from like the
I'm
episode.
like, take the reins, Matthew. Take the reins.
So, for example, in episode 7, Alicia was talking about Kimmi and or not Kimmi was talking about Elizabeth in the confessional. And Elizabeth was like really this was the episode where Elizabeth was really trying to rein in Tina and Colby and Keith to vote out Jerri at top 9. But Alicia came in and she's like, I think um Elizabeth is foolish to think that they would vote off Jerri now. Tina and Keith themselves would be foolish to vote off Jerri. I think she was the only person who was able to like look at the game in that way, specifically outside of the box, specifically in 3D, that I don't think anybody else did. And if anybody else did think like that, the editors didn't show us anybody else thinking like that. So I really respect Alicia here. I think she was just a victim of playing the game too little, too late. So I feel like I'm gonna give her like a solid C plus, maybe even a B minus. But I think she actually was kind of a better player than they tried to let on.
I think the problem for Alicia is that she was always safe on Kuta.
Hmm.
She was never in danger. She was at like the top of the pack. They were never going to get rid of Alicia
No.
on Kuta. So when it came time to the merge, she never felt the danger. She'd never felt the like, what are we going to do? Whereas like the other tribe,
Yeah.
their vote offs were just more intense. Like they had to do a bunch of them in a row. Like they'd been strategizing a lot more than I
Yeah.
think people in Kucha had needed to. So Alicia had to play catch up, and she got kind of to where everyone else was, but it, like you said, it was just like too little, too late.
Yeah.
But once Kimmi goes home, once Skupin, because he was interesting to watch and entertaining to watch, went home, the only person on Kucha I gave a single shit about was Alicia. So it was very
Yeah.
sad that like they go for her second after Varner. Really like first after like the only option was Varner
Hmm.
originally.
Yeah.
And it's smart that they
I
did
agree.
that because she was the best player left.
Do you think she would have won?
Yeah.
Yo, you think like not only would she have made it to the end, do you think like she could have gotten all the votes too?
Well, it depends because let's say Skupin goes home or makes it to merge, and they are up 6-4 at the merge, and they pick
Hmm.
off the Ogre one by one. I think then, like Alicia and Varner and Roger and Elizabeth are the two pairs, and Skupin's in the middle. I would never want to go to the end with Elizabeth and Roger because they're like the nicest people ever on this
Right.
season. Whereas Varner and Alicia are definitely more, you know, like strategic and just like more. They're not this like
No,
innocent. What am I doing? I'm just in the middle of the woods. Uh,
Alicia is a good strategizer,
yes. So like maybe he goes with them
not Jeff.
and
Yeah.
they vote out Elizabeth and Roger, and then Alicia
Right.
can make it to the end and potentially win.
I could see that happening.
I would give her a B. I would give her a B minus. I think that
A B minus. Okay.
she was good for the time. I wish that we got more.
Yeah. You know what? I think I'm gonna bump her up to a B minus as well. I think that's kind of where I'm at with her.
And
You
now,
have to clear your throat for this next one.
um, if you want to hear two faggots talk about Mother Goddess for 30 minutes, we're there because we're talking about Jerri motherfucking Manthey, the Black Widow herself.
The moment, the history maker, the legend, the icon. Yep.
Yes, I know that's right.
Hmm.
Jerri, I can't explain to you, Matthew, how hated, how despised, how repulsed people were by her in 2001.
She
Hated.
was too ahead of her time. She was
Yes.
too ahead of her time. And that's funny you say that because in my notes, I literally said no one on this season could handle her, so they just chose to hate her.
Well,
I wrote that word for word.
what's interesting is like in the beginning, she's like king. Like she's good with Mitchell. She's good with Amber. Her and Colby are flirting, and it's a mutual flirt. And
Hmm.
her and Tina kind of work together to like out Kel. And it only becomes like later on when she just continues to talk a bit more that people really are like, this woman is a nuisance.
See, that's the thing, though. My whole thing this entire season with everybody hating on Jerri, this is like literally everyone versus Jerri. Like that, this season is everyone versus Jerri, Jerri versus the world. The thing about Jerri is like, I genuinely believe she was not a problem. It's just that everybody else literally had no patience whatsoever. And I don't mean patience for Jerri. I think patience, period. I think Colby didn't have any patience. I think Keith didn't have any patience. Like, I just think these are people who did not learn how to be patient with other people. That's my tea. I am going to attack these people's characters that were on TV 20 years ago. I don't know because the whole time they were like editing in confessionals. This is what confused me. The whole time they were editing in confessionals of other players saying, Jerri said this, Jerri got mad, Jerri got confrontational. But there was not a single damn time we ever saw Jerri do any of that stuff.
Yep.
Like the most we ever saw was her saying, "Oh, the rice looks mushy," when Keith was cooking, when her and Amber were off kikiing to the side, and she said in passing, in a parenthetical more than anything, where she's like, "Oh, that looks mushy," and everyone was like, "Oh my God, I just can't stand Jerri's attitude anymore. I can't poke the bear anymore. If Jerri wakes up with a bad mood in a bad mood, then watch out." but we never saw that. And even if she was like that, even if she was like that, because you know how we are with reality TV, I always have to tell myself I wasn't there, you know? Even if she was like that, even if she was like a bear, I'm still team her. I still believe it's actually just the fact that you all were hungry and didn't have any patience for other people just existing. That's my hot take.
Well, I do think upon reflection of watching the season and hearing like whatever, I think that Jerri was a lot. I think that she liked having her opinions heard. Nothing wrong with that.
That's
But
between her and God.
here's the thing. She was always right. She was
Right.
literally every single time Jerri was right.
Yeah. And I feel like this is just a byproduct of her living in Germany for 12 years, which I did not find out until the finale. The fact that she lived in Germany for 12 years, I just think that kind of rubbed off on her.
Well, and like she's 30 years old, looks
Mhm.
about 25.
Yeah. Body T,
Occupation,
so I can't even be mad.
body T. Just like Tina Wesson on her famous novel, Out Love, Out Laugh, Out.
Out
What is
laugh,
it? Outlive, Out Laugh, Out Love.
outlive, out laugh, out love.
Jerri's like job title is aspiring actress.
Come on.
She knew what she was doing. Like she knew that she had one job, she had one shot, and she made the most of it.
What is it? Lights flickering in her apartment. Landlord knocking at her door. She had one chance.
She flew to Australia and said, "I'm going to make history,"
I'm gonna
and she
make
did.
history. She walked into the room of the president of CBS and she said, I want to make history.
Exactly.
I also loved that Jerri was hot and she knew it. I genuinely believe that people, especially the fans at home, were just scared because she was too sexually active, which I think is fascinating watching this season with a 2024 perspective. Because, I mean, I'm not saying that 2001 was the most PG time that there ever was, but I do believe the world is more sexually open and more sexually aware. It is Western audiences are more sexually open and sexually aware now than they were 23 years ago, obviously, as it should move that way. Um, so it's interesting because I'm watching the season, I'm like, Jerri's an icon. Jerri, they're just mad at her because her body T, you know. But I also love Jerri as a character because she reminds me of that one scene, that one clip of T.S. Madison with Katya, where she's like, not the boar worms,
Not the
not the
boy
boar
words.
worms. Because there was one moment that I loved so much in episode 6 that I had to write it down. I don't remember the context. I think it was about after she lost a reward challenge. But she said, and I quote, bastards. And she said it exactly like that in that intonation. Fans at home, go rewatch episode 6. She says that when she is kneeling down at camp and she says, bastards. And it's just like that moment solidified Jerri as a character for me. Like, love her.
Well, and for how like famous she was, you would think she like made it to like top four. She got eighth place. Like
Right, right.
she didn't even do that great. Genuinely, what I think the T with Jerri is, if I had to like truly put my like psych minor, degree to it, I
Phil
think
Major, first off.
they needed someone on the outs. They needed someone to be annoyed with. They needed
Hmm.
one person that they just could like complain about. And
Right.
the more you complain about someone, the more you look at their little tiny things and they become more
Hmm.
annoying. Because everyone else got along. Marilyn
Yeah.
and Tina and Colby, Keith, but like he was just Keith, whatever. They needed that
Yeah.
bit that they could just talk shit on.
That's kind of the thing that I was like sort of hinting at is like I just don't think that anybody else had any other patience this season. It was literally just Jerri existing and living her life, and they were mad, you
Yeah.
know, and it kind of pissed me off as a viewer. But I don't know. That's just between me and God.
Well, and I would love to see what Jerri, if this aired in 2024, I think she would be so loved. And
Oh
I think
yeah,
now she knows that like people caught up and
yeah,
like she is like the one. But back then, wow, was she
yeah.
hated.
And the thing that got me too was like the fact that it didn't affect her one little bit. After the season, there she was posing on Playboy. There she was signing autographs. Like she did not give a fuck what other people thought about her.
Also, like, I feel bad for Jerri because not only was she like talked shit on like 30 times an episode, she truly thought like her and Colby had something because he was
Hmm.
flirting with her so hardcore. And she's like, oh my gosh, like I got this alliance going. We have the
Hmm.
majority. Like,
Yeah. So I agree with what you're saying, which is why I'm going to be bringing her score down because I think as a player, she wasn't that good, which is why I think she got eighth place. My problem with Jerri as a player is that she was too trusting. I think a good Survivor player should not necessarily know when they're on the fritz, but they should play as if they're on the fritz at all times. They should play as if they're the next person going home at all times, which is where I think I'm trying to think of a player from season one that was kind of like that. There was like a player that on season one that was kind of playing like I think Rich was playing sort of like that.
Stacey, I
Like,
think Stacey and Jerri have a lot of similarities.
yeah. Like you are supposed to no, sorry, not an equivalent to Jerry, but I think like a good Survivor player, like
Oh,
they have to play as if they think they're the next person going home at all times. I think that's where you should play. Jerry was too trusting. Jerry got too comfortable thinking she was in alliance with Colby without like seeing, oh, even if I have Colby, I have to be prepared that he might drop me any second.
well, and also Jerry's best move would to been to have flipped at the merge
I
and
agree.
joined up with imagine Jerry sitting down with Alicia and
Yep.
saying, all right, girl, so here's what's going on. My entire tribe hates me. We're 5-5. Me, you, Jeff. Let's take these bitches out.
Boom. I agree. I agree.
But that type of strategy, that type of villainy, if you will, had not been invented yet. So I'm not going to hold it against her. But yeah, I agree.
Right.
I would give her like honestly like a D plus.
Yeah. I was gonna give her a D. Yes.
Yes, like she
Like,
definitely had the strategic mind, but she wasn't able to like get along with people well enough
yeah,
to like pull anything off.
I agree. Actually, you know what? I'm gonna give her a
No.
C. I'm gonna give her a C because body T.
Please. She did single handedly get Kel out. So I'll give her that.
Yeah, good for her. She had one good early move,
Yes.
but it was also Kel, so like how good of a move was it?
Your husband.
Um,
Yes.
yes. If in a perfect world, Kel would have went home first, but that's just
And Deb made it to the end.
yes. Deb makes it to top two, and then Linda makes it to top one, and then they both come back for all stars and double crowning. Yep.
So up next in seventh place, probably the most forgettable person on this cast, but has done the absolute most in life. It's Nick Brown from Kucha.
So Nick,
We
Nick, Nick.
so
I did see
handsome,
on
so handsome.
very attractive man. I did see that he's like some sort of Congress member or something. I don't know what he. I did see that he served in government at one point.
He joined the race for the Attorney General of Washington, but
Oh,
he is the attorney
state.
for the Western District,
Oh,
and then
well,
he
shout
ran
out to him.
for General Washington. I don't know how I don't know.
Well, shout out to him. I feel like I want to do something, and I'm going to do this for somebody else on this cast, but I feel like I need to give out a little BLAC exclusive award that I'm going to start calling the Who Award. Um, and that is going to be a tie between Nick and one other person. But Nick is going to be my one of my Who winners for this season because I do not remember this man. I remember he won immunity, I think, once by himself. So shout out to him. Got nothing for you. I got nothing.
I think he was a big help to Kucha pre merge because he was definitely a big help in challenges and they did win a lot.
Mhm.
Um, then he went home.
He did. He
Lovely,
did.
seems like a lovely human, but just did not
Seemed
really
funny.
have a personality for TV. It seems
Yeah. He was funny. He had some good quips, but for couldn't tell you nothing.
he is
I
like
got nothing.
the definition of like C average for me. Not great, not bad. I have no opinion. Middle of the road.
D minus.
Whoa.
Yeah.
You said if you're not getting the entertainment, you suck. Deb, better.
What you listen, if there's What are you telling me? This grading scale is not arbitrary? What are you talking about? The way I grade people on Survivor is like I throw a dart with my eyes blindfolded, just kind of see where it lands. D minus.
Next we have Amber Burkich, who famously in her audition tape said,
Famously.
I had a dream that Jeff Probst told me I was the next winner of Survivor. So I had to
Oh,
apply.
the fact that Amber had a dream to be on Survivor and she performed the way she did. So she's gonna
She,
be my second. She's gonna be my second recipient of the Who Award.
she's very young. She's 22.
Okay,
You're what,
that means nothing.
24?
That means nothing to me. I'm 23, first off.
Oh, God.
22 in Survivor. That means nothing to me. When we had the one diva from this past season that was like 21 and she was killing everybody. Isn't D like 21?
D from 46?
Yeah,
45?
or whichever season. Yeah.
I don't think she was that young.
Oh, well, she looked that young. So her being 22, she has no excuse to perform the way that she did.
Yeah. Okay. Here's my like crackpot theory. I think that in order to keep Tina and Colby looking good because they're the final two, they want to make sure that their whole thing is they want nice people to win this season, right? Um, they needed to either villainize or just not show at all the people that they were stabbing in the back because they did stab both Jerri and Amber in the back hardcore.
True.
Jerri,
But
it's like, oh, well, she's a bitch. Who cares?
right.
Amber, it's like, well, we don't even know who she is. So I don't really care that they stabbed her in the back.
Well, because the fact I don't even think that they tried to edit down Amber. I just think Amber gave them nothing.
Well, that part too, but I think it helps.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. The one I did write something down for Amber though that I did not write anything down for Nick. I did write something down for Amber that stuck out to me when at top eight when Jerri went home. Amber was voting for Elizabeth and she said, I want to stick to my word. And the one thing I thought when she said that was that's literally the worst thing you can say in this game. Like sticking to your word is the worst thing you can do in this game. Point blank, period.
Yeah, I mean, we don't get to know Amber. I would give her honestly a D minus because after Jerri left, her number one ally, usually the next episode would be like Amber galvanized, like
Hmm.
about to like tear shit up. Like you guys turned on me, you voted out my number one ally. Oh, we're fucking this game up. Like you're
Right.
all done for. And it was instead, well, Jerri's gone. The end. Like
Hmm.
she basically just laid down and died.
Because the way that she could have easily teamed up with Roger and Elizabeth,
We
easily, and then they would have tied the vote. And I'm almost positive that one of the people from the Okafor Alliance would have had more votes.
Colby
Oh, yeah, 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 exactly. Exactly. So if they just ganged up on Colby, Colby would have had more votes in a tiebreaker. Boom. Easy. But Amber just gave up.
because
F.
she just didn't have that like you know
Mm.
yeah that like
Yeah.
there's like a phrase
F.
F.
F. Yeah.
Look at
Love
that.
her. She seems like a lovely person. She seems lovely. I would want to be friends with her. I would want to be friends with her. Gave me nothing. F.
Well, what about Roger Bingham?
I don't really have much for him. He seemed like a lovely guy. He seemed nice. I think his story was just revolved around Elizabeth. Because Elizabeth was like, I'm so sad Roger went home, but Roger seemed nice. Yeah,
Elizabeth is like the main Kucha character of the season.
correct.
She's
Yeah.
the last one
Once
standing.
Alicia went home, she was kind of like the last character. I'm not going to say player because a player is like, I feel like in this season, player is like a luxury title I can give you, but she was the last character there.
Well, she did. Here's what we're talking about Roger. What Roger and
Right.
Elizabeth did together was be the nice alternative to Jerri and Amber. And
Yeah,
Tina and Colby's whole thing was we want nice people at the end. I don't know
that's
why they
true.
Keith with them, but they wanted nice people at the end. So just by being really nice people, they got to get to the end.
Yeah, and I feel like that is something I'm going to see on Survivor in many seasons to come. Like, I feel like as much as we love the strategy and nastiness of this game, as much as I love that and I'm entertained by that, genuinely just being a nice person can get you so far. It can
Yeah.
get you so far in this game. Especially I feel like in these early seasons of Survivor where they're all about just like, that very early 2000s attitude where it's like it's not about the money, it's about who deserves it. Like this is the season where they're like, "Oh my God, who deserves this money? Who would be the most selfless?" Whereas in season 46, Kenzie won by the very virtue of saying, "I'm going to use this money for myself." Like that's kind of like the
Yeah.
perspective shifts we're watching here in these seasons. So in these early seasons, like just being nice and selfless, it gets you so far.
Charlie was like, I think I give it to charity. And they went, "Bleh, ew, boo."
Boo! And you know what? I would not have voted for Charlie anyway. But the minute he said that, girl, get out of here. Kenzie, you got my vote.
Yeah. Roger, he's just like a really nice, also sticking with the theme of people that look older back then that are actually like, wait, like I'm looking at my parents who are
Right.
55 and 56. This man looks a solid 10 years older than my parents, but he's 53.
Yeah. That's just what early 2000s does to you.
Yeah. I would give him like a C because I think Elizabeth did a lot of the strategic
Yeah.
heavy lifting between them. He was just a nice guy.
hmm Yeah, he
Yeah.
was just a nice guy who just wanted to go out fish. Very humble. I'm gonna give him a D.
Oh.
Yeah.
Elizabeth Filarski, now Elizabeth Hasselback.
Isn't
Fam-
she like dating a football player? Like a famous football player?
I
I
try
read her Wikipedia page like 2 days ago, so
I
I
try not to
remember.
pay too much attention to Elizabeth, to be honest with you.
um, yeah, Elizabeth, I hate this woman because of her conservative values, first off. But as a character on this television program, I do think she had some good moments. I think she peaked like the minute after the merge. I think she had like one good episode of strategizing where she was really trying to bag on Tina and Colby to sort of flip on Jerri early on. Because I do think in that moment she was trying to get Tina and Colby to trip up. Because I do believe that she was cognizant of the fact if they eliminated Jerri at top nine rather than top eight like they did, she knew she could easily flip the votes back to in the favor of the Kucha tribe. I think she was cognizant of that, but she was not trying to present it in that information. So you could really see her put in her hands into the dirt and really try for that one episode. But the minute that she saw it didn't go through, she kind of saw the writing on the wall. And so she sort of lost momentum after that. I do think in that one moment right after the merge was great. She tried her best, but sometimes that just doesn't always go through. But I do think she was like just a kind person, I suppose.
What happened? No,
No, literally. Trump happened. Oh,
well, before Trump, long before Trump. Um,
really?
yeah, we're talking like 2009.
Oh, really? I didn't know that.
Here's the thing, she got herself into a good spot where she was solid with the two people that were like running the game of Tina.
hmm
She then laid down. She was like, "Oh, I'm in a good spot." Instead
Yeah.
of thinking, some steps ahead, which again, this is season two. They probably weren't thinking like this, but eventually you're gonna be like they're gonna go to the end and you're
Yeah.
not gonna be there. She had such a good opening at 7 to go to Amber and say, they just turned on Jerri. They're coming for you next, girly. And
hmm
to bring in Nick and to bring in Roger and to bring in Amber, and the four of them could vote out Keith or
Yeah.
or Colby. But instead, she was like, "Oh yeah, I'm in with the people now. I can just chill."
Yeah. It was like that's the thing that's frustrating about these early seasons is that there you can see the potential. It's just that these people were so dumb.
Well, I
It's
wouldn't say they're dumb. It hadn't been done yet, and
We'll do it.
these things
If
that we were
if
talking
it
about
hadn't
had
been
not been
done
done
that,
yet.
if it hadn't been done then, if it hadn't been done yet, just be the blueprint. My God. Like just
Well,
do it.
yeah, and honestly, you've seen the season, so like I'm not spoiling anything from people. Nalea, Pascal, Kathy, Visepia, Sean changed this entire game the way that they played in Marquesas.
Oh,
And
season four.
until, Nalea and Pascal flipped on their tribe, the Rotu 4 I mean, it's like if they wouldn't have done that then, I don't know how long this type of gameplay would have gone on for.
Mm-mm. No. Yeah, I agree. I have to rewatch season 4 though.
Which I know you're excited for because you're a Vesepia state.
I love season 4. I love season 4. I can't wait for it. But when you were listening to those names, I did not know what you were talking about until you said Pascal and Vesepia. I was like, oh, I know that season.
I know. I was like Nalea, Pascal, and you're like, huh?
I really do not know who Nalea is. I gotta be so, but I remember Vesepia and Pascal.
I would give Elizabeth a C plus.
I'm gonna give her a C. I would, yeah, I'm gonna give her a C minus because I do instead of a D because I do think she had that one good episode of gameplay where she tried, she really tried, she gave it her good old college try. But I'll give it a C minus.
Now we're at our top three. 42 days.
I
Well,
love 1 out of 3 of these people.
Keith probably Keith made 41. Keith Famie is the definition of a curmudgeon. And
Yeah,
that is truly the only I have nothing else to say about Keith. I'm sure he's a lovely person outside of the game, whatever. I have no opinions of this man.
he kind of looks like Alfred Molina.
Honestly, sometimes
Yeah, like I'm looking at this little like you know how they have the little yearbook photos for the promotional photos on
no,
here.
literally.
Like he looks like Alfred Molina in Spider-Man 2.
No, honestly, sometimes Keith on the season, like I would.
Yo, yeah. Like especially early on where he had like had his like ripped abs and his shirt off. I was
Mm.
like, okay. Keith, I wrote down one single bullet point for Keith. Mind you, Jerri had 5 bullet points. Um, Jeff had 3 bullet points. We're talking like top 10 people who went home weeks ago. Alicia, I had 4 bullet points for Alicia.
Oh, mother.
We're talking people who went home weeks ago, right? I wrote one thing for Keith. One, 2 words, hates women.
You think, but he's
I
so
think,
good with Tina.
okay. Like, what do you want me to, so is God with the Virgin Mary. What do you want from me? Like, I don't, I'm like, that's the only thing I wrote for him. I genuinely believe that he just hated Jerri because he hated Jerri.
I would say I don't know if I have enough evidence to say that he hates women. He
Hates women.
definitely doesn't like when a woman tells him her opinion on something that he's doing
Yeah.
or her opinion at all.
Yeah. Well, I think that's reason enough to believe that he hates women. I don't even think he liked Tina that much.
I genuinely don't even know what to rate his game because like we never like he was
What game?
barely featured.
Yeah. That's like
Except
he was to me he was the definition of what I was talking about with them pushing the narrative of transformation with the season because he the only time he ever talked was when he was like, "Yeah, I have my 2 kids at home and my fiance." Speaking of fiance, oh my God, what sorry, I don't know why I keep clapping today. Speaking of fiance, I forgot to say this. Um, my favorite episode was I think it was like 12 or 13, where they had the little reward challenge where they got to email their significant others from home. I do not believe for a second that they were actually talking to their significant others. So when Keith was like proposing to his fiance, I genuinely believe he was just talking to an intern that was like writing an email back to him.
well, I was like, how do they have service out there?
Girl, it's 2001. Y2K, fresh off the boat.
Yeah,
Y2K, fresh off the presses. Edit
yeah.
that out. Technology, it's a new world.
Yeah, I would honestly I'll give him like a D because like I don't know. His little
F.
rivalry with Colby was fun
He
because
had a rivalry with Colby.
they like started to hate each other at the end.
Oh, they did. I do not remember that.
Yeah, they like Colby was like, "Can we just vote out Keith because he's annoying as fuck?" And Tina's like, "No, Colby, we need Keith because Tina was the strategic mastermind of the season." Yes, I'm
She
right.
was.
Any final thoughts on Keith? Because we
F.
we have more important people to talk about, like
Yeah.
Colby Donaldson, who okay, much like how okay, this is just like a weird 2000s thing. Older people looked older than they are. Like a 53-year-old looks like 65.
Hmm.
Colby, younger people look older too. Because tell me why Colby is my age on this season.
And you look the exact same age as
Did he not look like 35?
I would have said he was like 32 for sure. He's a fucking auto customizer. Girl, grow up.
He did host a gun shooting competition show for like
I
five
made a
years.
mistake. Oh, well, shout out to him, I guess.
He was on Curb Your Enthusiasm. He did some acting.
Oh, did you really? Wow. I just made a mistake and I clicked on Colby's profile, so I now know who's on Heroes and Villains. And this fucking mohawk that he has in this promo picture, first off, it's sending me. Anyways,
Not
ignore
heroes
that.
versus villains. Yeah, you got to be careful about who you're clicking on.
No, because I just clicked on Colby because I wanted to see this little promo picture, but I forgot he was like on future seasons. But I
Yeah.
now know he's on Heroes versus Villains. So
Because yeah, it always shows their most recent season.
yeah, yeah. Colby continues my trend of hating the men on this season. Do not like Colby. Early game pre-major, early game pre-merger. I genuinely believe he only lasted as long as he did by being a centrist. He was not willing to commit to anyone, and he knew that, which is fine. You're allowed whatever strategy you are to survive in this game, but I just don't like Colby as a person. So therefore, I believe the strategy is cowardly. Um, for example, in episode 5, where he's like, where Jerri confronted him for once about throwing away the alliance, and he's like, Jerri, I don't care about that. It's like, shut up and grow up, dude. I grow up. As a person, had no patience whatsoever. Had no patience whatsoever. He gave me like those really straight men that just needed to go to anger management classes. For example, when it really all revolves around Jerri. For example, when he screamed at Jerri during the blind reward challenge, where that was the one where Jerri was on her little like lifeguard seat, and Colby, without being given any direction, he was just standing there for a solid 10 seconds. 10 seconds. And he's like, Jerri, it's like, grow up. I can't stand you. I hope that Colby watches this right now.
Well, and not only that, but then
20,
at the end of that challenge, when he like chucks his water and like drenches Jerri,
right. And Jerri was like, ah, ha, 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 ha.
she's like, "Oh
But
my god,
Colby was
he's
very
so
serious
funny."
about
But
it.
no, girl, he's pissed. He's
He's
mad.
pissed. Um, the other thing too about Colby is like the thing that frustrates me about Colby as well is that you could tell based on how he was edited that the producers wished so bad he won. They wanted him to win so bad just based on how they presented him as a character on the television show. But that's the thing as well, because at the time, I'm sure he was a fan favorite. I'm sure everybody loved this archetype. But to me, he gave me boring main character white man archetype, similar to Jon Snow on Game of Thrones, similar to Superman. It's like those, like the leader of the Harry Potters, like the leaders of the group that are boring, like whatever. I don't care. So I'm glad he didn't win. I don't think he deserved any single immunity challenge that he got. I'm so happy that he lost the entire season. I did not care when he got that emotional moment when he did not care when his mom came out during that reward challenge. So Colby, whatever. I just love being able to vent like this, and I appreciate you listening and being like this.
Yeah. I mean, like, because everyone, well, not everyone felt this way in 2001. Everyone loved him. He was the golden boy. He was America's
Yeah,
favorite. He was, people were fuming that he lost. Like, they thought it was so unfair that he won, like, what, 7 challenges or whatever and
yeah,
in the season. But I think that Colby makes a couple really bad decisions that lead
yeah, because he
to
sucks.
that lead him to losing the season. Like cutting Jerri the way that he did, like he was never going to get
Mm-mm.
her jury vote,
Yep.
and like basically throwing Amber away. Like he could have really used Amber as like a number of his own, like how Keith was a number for Tina,
Hmm.
but instead, like he just saw him and Tina as equals, and he probably thought that Tina would lose against him easily.
Oh yeah.
I think he underestimated just how much Tina was doing. And postseason he would say multiple times that Tina was the like mastermind, like she was the one really
Hmm.
doing the strategizing, and he was more of like the manpower. But I think that every time there was like a door open for him to go for the win and like surpass Tina, he shut it. He shut it on
Yep.
Jerri. He shut it on Amber. He shut it when he didn't bring Keith to final two. because
Oh my God, he would have won for sure. Keith was
yes,
in
it would have
top
been
two.
unanimous.
Yes.
Um,
Yeah.
yeah, it was like blunder after blunder.
Hmm.
I do think that he made the correct decision in like slipping over to the Tina and Keith early on and not
Hmm.
going with the Jerri and with the Mitchell. Because I do think Jerri would have always been the head of that snake, and I don't think Colby would have had as much of a partnership as he had
Hmm.
with Tina. But I think after making that good decision, it was just
Yeah. And it wasn't even that he made those blunders in the fact that he was just not cognizant. He wasn't looking at the game in 3D. Um,
Matrix.
I genu Yeah, he wasn't looking at the game in the Matrix, but I believe he made those blunders with the hubris of a man who thought he was going to win no matter what. I genuinely believe he had that pride, that vanity, that believed he was going to win the season no matter what happened, no matter who was in the top two with him. And that's where he faltered, and which is why it was so gratifying to watch him lose. Um, so Colby, I do think he had some good moves. I do think he had some good moves. It was just the execution of those moves and the motivation behind those moves, the hubris that I was mentioning, brings him down a lot. And because I don't like him, D plus.
I would give Colby a B minus. Similar
Okay.
to Alicia, I feel like they had the mindset, they just didn't have the follow through.
Yeah.
Um, and like both of them could have won. Like Colby was
Hmm.
actually very close. He was one move away from winning
Yeah.
the meet. And because
Yeah.
I think he did by the entire season saying, I want the good people to win. I want the good people at the end. He was kind of forced to
Hmm.
Tina. Uh,
Yeah.
or else
And
he becomes a hypocrite.
oh yeah, absolutely. Because this was like back in the day where people like cared about if you were a hypocrite or not.
But yeah.
Um, and the thing too that also I that reminds me of this is like I think Colby thought he was a good player, like at the time of filming. Um, he reminds me, he kind of like, it kind of reminds me of 45. I think it's 45, where D won, where D was playing the game that, what's his name? Tall, skinny guy that I
Drew.
hate. Drew. D was playing the game that Drew thought he was playing. I believe that Tina was playing the game that Colby thought he was playing. You know, that's kind of where I saw Colby. So D, or what did I give him? Did I give him D plus? I don't remember. D
Whatever you want. The I love that society has shifted to where
turned.
Jerri is now the unsung hero of Australia, and
Hmm.
Colby, it's like the villain or like the show's villain, the actual villain.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that leads us to our winner, one of my favorite winners of all time. Made so many small little moves that were just like always setting herself up to be in the best possible position moving forward. It
Yep.
is Tina
Ah,
motherfucking Wesson.
Wesson, out, live, out, laugh, out, love the
Yes.
devotions of winning the game of life. Yep. Love Tina Boots. Love Tina with my entire heart. I remember watching this season the first time last year and being shocked that she won. Because I thought for sure that they were probably going to give it to Colby because Colby was such an archetype at that time that probably would have won something like this. But the fact that they had a gay man win the first season, then a woman win the second season, it was kind of like that's saying, that's just, I know coming off and saying like, oh my God, a woman won. That's a crazy thing to say in 2024, especially with the climate that we just kind of went through. Um, but at the time, it really was kind of like a woman winning. Like I was subverted into thinking that the basic white man was going to win, but I was very pleasantly surprised to see Tina win because Tina was a damn good player. One of the things I noted about Tina, especially pre-merge, was that she was concerned with keeping around the people that would carry her through rather than the relationships that she built. This is pre-merge we're talking about here. For example, in episode 3, they spent a lot of time developing the relationship between Tina and Maralyn. And then that very same episode, Tina would vote Maralyn off, because Tina was cognizant of the fact that Maralyn would not get her anywhere, especially in this pre-merge when it's a lot of physical based challenges. Maralyn was not going to carry Tina anywhere. Um, and mind you, as well, Maralyn claimed Tina as her number one right before she got eliminated, right before she got gutted by Tina. Um, so Tina was willing to make those sacrifices where she needed to. Um, and yes, I did also write down the last minute change to the Mitchell vote where she said to the camera when she was voting Mitchell, I didn't come out here to starve and tire myself only to keep around the weakest person. You know, she was like, see, I love writing down these little quotes. I'm prepared. She was making these sacrifices. She was playing to win, which I really loved about her this season. And the thing about her as well was that she had a good social game, I say with air quotes, because it's not necessarily that she went in with a strategy of being, oh, let me be a good social person. I think she was generally just naturally good at building relationships with people. And you would see it where she would go lay down in the sun with Elizabeth at top four or something. She would go and play what were they playing? Mahjong? What were they playing? Like the canasta, I don't know, with other people. Like she all the time you would see her spending time one on one with people, which I think really helped her a lot, especially during the jury era where she needed the relationships with those people to vote her through. So that was kind of like one of the things that I really thought she was good at, especially in comparison to Colby. Colby being a loser who would just go walk off on his own and just do things by himself, like grow up. Um, I can't. I love it. And then, as well, on top of that, I think she was the most emotionally sound throughout the entire season. There wasn't a single time this season where she let up. She was cognizant, she was attentive, she was conscious the entire time. Whereas I think other players kind of, when they felt comfortable, they would kind of like pull back on the reins. Tina was showing initiative. Tina was on the offense at all times, which I think really pulled her through to the end as well. So Tina, one of my favorite players this season, as well as the fact that I think I noticed that she's kind of the blueprint for the mother character archetype on this season, where what was it, season 4, I think, where the top three, there was Vesepia, that other girl, and then the other, who got third place that season?
Kathy.
Kathy, where like everyone was like, Kathy would have won if she was in top two because she was such a mother archetype. I think kind of Tina was the product of that. Tina was like, she was such a mother to everybody here. We have to vote her to win. So Tina, I really love and respected her game. I think she did spectacular this season. I'm gonna give her an A.
Yeah, I mean, I was checking the votes while you were going through that. Colby
Mm-hmm.
only got Roger, Amber, and Nick.
So
Now,
all the flops of the season.
Roger and Nick are very like all American men. That's like
Right.
they like, Colby kind of caters to that kind of person. Amber just, I think, had a better relationship with Colby.
Mm-hmm.
All Colby needed to do was not backstab and be mean to Jerri the way
Mm-hmm.
that he like she just wanted that validation that she wasn't crazy, that he did like her, that he did want to work with her. And I still think if he was at least nice to her and made it seem like, Jerri, we got to get you out because you're the biggest threat. Like, I still think
Right.
she would have voted for him. But because he treated her poorly, she voted for Tina, and Tina rightfully won the season.
Yeah.
And it's sad that I think so many of her moves are so subtle or involve so much strategy that they didn't really want to highlight it because of, the Richard Hatch of it all, the
Right.
before of it all. Because it ends up kind of being a surprising win. And a lot of people were not on board because she's not really in the edit a bunch until the very end of the season.
Mm-hmm.
Always these like bigger characters that are getting more screen time because she is like more subdued and she's not as loud. But once she, is in that end game, she runs the entire thing.
Oh yeah.
And
Oh yeah.
like, I think that she is one of like the reason why she won is because she was the Richard Hatch of the season. She was thinking so much farther ahead when it came to strategy, when it came to what this game could be than every single other person on this cast. And that is
Hmm. Yeah. And I also believe that Tina was more concerned with how she was perceived by other people than Richard was. Um, Richard, I think, won just by being a good damn player. Tina, I think, was genuinely pulled through by the relationships that she had established foundations with everybody there. Um, so I like, especially in these early seasons, like how I said in our first episode, I think I could see how Richard Hatch was kind of a blueprint, a foundation layer for villains to come. Tina, I can see like the foundation of how important a good friendship with all your other competitors is to a game.
yeah, yeah. I would give Tina an A, like just an A. Like I feel like
Yeah,
for me, an A plus is like the top 10 games of all time.
right.
And then an A is like right below that. It is like you did incredible. You did everything right.
Hmm.
No flaws in sight. Stan you, love you. You're an icon.
Yeah. And you know what that is? That's the that's the daily devotion of winning the game of life.
Exactly. And guess what? We should read her book live on the, or we should do like an artistic reading of her book. We'll
I'm
read
actually down.
we'll read her book and then we'll read Rob Mariano, Boston Rob's book.
Boston Rob has a book.
He has a book.
Boston Rob can read. Yeah, absolutely. So shout out Tina Wesson, one of my favorite winners of all the seasons I've watched.
So with that, that is Australia. Survivor, sorry, Australian Outback. Who was your favorite person on the season?
I'm gonna say Tina. I think Tina was my favorite person on the season. Um, Even though I do have other icons from the season that I love, Jerri, icon, point blank period. Alicia, icon, point blank period. But I think Tina was my favorite even from the jump. I really liked her. She kind of reminds I don't know why, but I just thought of this comparison. Did you ever watch Walking Dead?
Yes.
She reminds me of Carol in the way that like Carol in season one was so meek and or season one and season two was so meek and mild, but you could tell something in her was going to blossom later down the line. That's how I felt about Tina. Like Tina pre-merge, I was like, there's something there. When she stuck her knife in the back of Maralyn in episode three, I said, there's potential here. I see this woman doing something really special coming down the line. But I think Tina was my favorite. Who was yours?
I would say player wise, Tina.
Hmm.
Character wise, Jerri.
Yeah, point blank. Yeah,
Okay, now
absolutely.
who are
Yeah.
you like frothing at the mouth to see back? Because I will say much of this cast comes back. A lot of this cast comes back.
First person I want back, Jerri. Like that's not even a question. Um, I want Jerri back in many multiple different ways. I want her back to either A, be even worse than she was this season and just like go full guns ablazing in the next season that she's in and just be like even worse, actually get mad at people. I want her to like be the villain that they pretended she was. You know what I mean? Then I also want her to get a redemption arc. So I want her to come back in multiple capacities. But Jerri would be my first choice to come back. I do know that some winners come back, and I think Tina would be a good choice to come back. In fact, she is the only person on All Stars that I know is on All Stars. I do think I mentioned this when we recorded for season one, but Tina is the only person that I know for sure comes back to All Stars, like the first All Stars. So I do know that she comes back, which I'm very happy to see. I would like to see Alicia on just because of her little fight. Like that was like a moment. Like I will always wave my finger in your face. Like if Survivor had entrance lines like they do on Drag Race, like I would want
Yes.
her entrance line to be like, I will always wave my finger in your
Or
face.
like a Real Housewife tagline. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. They should start doing that for Survivor,
The Real
please.
Housewives of Borneo.
Those are probably the three I'd want back. I don't want any of the men to come back at all.
I would agree. Mitchell, I was fine with Mitchell. He was whatever. And Roger is just seems like a very lovely person. The rest of
Yeah.
the men,
I don't like the men this season. Like the
Nick
men
was fine. Nick was fine. He's
Nick
whatever.
was I'm neutral on Nick, but the men this season I do not enjoy. I know for a fact like I feel it in my heart that Colby's probably going to come back, which I hate. I hate that idea, but like, I hear so much about how he was so loved at the time. They're probably going to bring him back no matter what, which I like hate the idea of that. There's really nobody else from this season that I'm like frothing at the mouth that I'm like I want back, except maybe like Deb. Abolish prisons.
So, which season do you think is better? Season 1 or season 2?
One.
Yeah,
Oh, sorry.
I would agree.
Like I think season two was more foundational for like an overall game, if that makes sense. Like we had some good moments pre-merge, we had some good moments post-merge. But I think specifically for how do I want to phrase this? I do think we had some good foundational moments on season two. But I think if we're talking like actual blueprint, I think if we're talking like iconography, I think if we're talking even characters on the show, season one trumps anything that season two does. Winner, like Richard is one of my favorite winners. Tina is also one of my favorite winners, but Richard was just like a moment. Nobody in the history of Survivor is going to compare to Sue Hawk for me. And I remembered her name this
The
time.
Sue
Sue
Bird,
Hawk,
the Sue
Sue
Pelican.
Bird, Sue Owl, Sue Bat. Nobody in the history of Survivor is ever going to compare to Sue Hawk for me. It's just kind of like I feel so much more about season one, whether that feeling is nostalgia, even though it wasn't the first season I watched, whether that feeling is nostalgia, whether that feeling is excitement or captivation, I will always have more feeling for season one than I will for season two. But with that being said, I do have more appreciation for season two after my rewatch because now that I actually paid attention, I do think there were some interesting things there that made it more captivating than it did the first time. What do you like
I
better?
Yeah, for me, season 1 is much better. This season, I don't like as much as most people do. I
Yeah,
find it a little.
especially because it's so long.
It's so long. Once Jerry's gone, I really don't give a shit.
Right.
It's really really slow at points.
Yeah.
The characters that I love. Mad Dog, Jerry, Kimmi, like even Skupin is like really fun to watch on this season. But there's a lot of people that Alicia, there's a lot of people I feel nothing for.
Yeah.
They all make it
Yeah.
very far.
Well, like season one, like half of that cast, I'm like, I love these people. Season two, I'm like, I like maybe a max of three of you, maybe four, you
Well,
know?
it's like half this cast returns. Like 8 out of the 16 will come back.
Well, I hope I like them the second time better.
So yeah, it's interesting, but
Mhm.
this has run very very long. I'm assuming these are all just going to run really really long because neither
Yeah.
of us can shut the fuck up. So
We're a bunch of yappers.
we
This is
are.
almost as long as the season was. 42 days? That's
Yeah,
crazy.
they never did that again. They did like
Thank
one.
God.
They did like a day minus one time. So I guess that's technically 40, but they never did
Mhm.
like 42 bullshit again.
Thank God.
Yeah. So imagine how long our like all stars and like heroes versus villains episodes
That
are.
All Stars coverage, I cannot wait to find out the cast for All Stars because that coverage is about to go dummy. I cannot wait.
Yeah.
That's gonna be a 3.5 hour podcast we're gonna have right there.
And I like a long podcast. If I see a
Mhm.
podcast, one of my favorites, and it's like an hour and a half, I'm like, ugh, whatever. But if I see 3.5 hours, oh, I'm right now. I'm listening to one. It's 6.5 hours long, and I saw that
Shout
number
out to you.
and I got moist. I was so happy. So hopefully that's the energy that our listeners have.
Shout out amateur versus connoisseur.
Because guess what? All Stars will be 6 hours long.
Yep, yep. And I will be sat. And we're all gonna take that. We're gonna do that in one take.
Yeah,
One take, one sitting.
yeah. We'll set aside a whole day, a whole Sunday.
Yep.
Pretty
Mm-hmm.
much. Well, up next, we will be talking about Africa. That'll be
Boo.
so that will be coming soon-ish. Make sure you're following us on all of our socials so that you never miss an episode because we don't have a schedule here. We just drop shit whenever it's done.
Because you know me, it takes me 42 days to watch an entire season of Survivor.
One man, one couch, 42 days, 16 episodes of Survivor.
And will I survive? That's the $1 million question. Literally.
Well, you can follow us everywhere at what's our at gonna be?
That's a great question. We should probably check that.
I can insert that later.
Okay. Like a dub over.
It's literally gonna be like the video's gonna pause, and I'm gonna be like, it's gonna.
We should probably find that. We got to get our socials set up.
We're recording a lot of these ahead of time, so things to think about later that we probably should have figured out already. Whatever.
It should, it should be like a 2004 movie where it just freeze frames and it just has like the scrolling credits.
And like it slowly fades to black in the background. And it's just
Oh my god.
Yeah. Well, thank you all so much for listening, and we will catch you all in Africa.